Okay guys, welcome back to a new video, and in today's video I'll be going through my 2024 AFL Grand Final predictions. So obviously we have the Sydney Swans taking on the Brisbane Lions in the final game of the AFL season. So both teams have been up the top for quite a while, like Brisbane for quite a few years, since 2019, and Sydney since the early 2010s. Well, excluding 2019 and 2020, they were just abnormal years for them. However, both teams have had a pretty different season heading into this game. Sydney have been up the top all year, even when they had that slump towards the end of the home and away season, they were still on top of the ladder. But Brisbane, on the other hand, they were bottom 6 midway through the season, and then a switch went off in them. After the bye, they won 9 in a row. However, they did have those 2 choke losses against GWS and Collingwood towards the end of the season, and they were struggling with goal kicking accuracy. Both teams have not lost a single game in the final series. However, Brisbane have won 3 games and Sydney have only won 2, and Brisbane have won 2 games away from home at the MCG. So I guess an advantage for Brisbane is experience. Both teams are struggling with injuries, such as for the Swans, Callum Mills is not playing, and for the Lions, Oscar McInerney is not playing. And that is a big out because Brisbane don't have anyone to replace their key ruckman. Well, technically they can have someone to replace him, but he's not going to be as efficient. Well, this game really has the potential for best AFL VFL Grand Final ever. I can't be set on this game until I know which end each team will be kicking at and when. Just like almost any other AFL ground, the MCG has a scoring end, and that's where pretty much almost all the goals are going to be scored. Because, both teams like to play catch-up. Brisbane like to come from big leads in the middle of the game, whereas Sydney like to start poorly and gradually get better as the game goes on. I'm genuinely don't know who's going to win this game. That's why I say whoever gets the scoring end in the second and last quarters is probably going to win the game. As even of a matchup as I think it sounds, I think Sydney probably have the better list. You got guys like Florin and Goulden and Warner in the midfield, plus Heaney and Parker at half forward, and you've got Papley and Amadi in the forward line. And Amadi can be really dangerous on his day. You saw that game against Adelaide early in the season where he kicked 9 goals. Plus you got guys like Blakey and Rampy and Melican and Lloyd in the back line, in which that is a pretty solid back line, just those 4 players alone. Carton as well, make that 5. And as for Brisbane, I think they are best in their forward line, which they've got guys like Cameron, Bailey, Hipwood. Well, Hipwood's a bit out of form. Danaher as well. That's a solid forward line. And then you've got the midfield with Rayner and Neil and Ashcroft. Well, Ashcroft's turning out to be a star. I think he could have a Brownlow in the next 5 or 6 years. And then you got guys like Zorko, Andrews and Lester in the back line. So I think Sydney have a more aggressive and fast style of play than Brisbane do. That said, I do give Sydney the edge over Brisbane here. So let's go through my quarter by quarter predictions. So midway through the first quarter, I'm expecting Brisbane to get off to a flying start, getting off to a 25-point lead. I do think this game will be fairly high scoring. And by quarter time, Brisbane would have continued their rampage, getting up to a 34-point lead in the first and piling on 47 points of their own. However, the second quarter sees Sydney starting to make a comeback, trimming the margin down to 16 halfway through before taking the lead at the second change. So in the third quarter, Brisbane dominate again, kicking the first 4 goals. Yet by three-quarter time, Sydney would have piled on 3 of their own to trim the margin back to 16 at the final change. And midway through the last quarter, Sydney kicked 3 unanswered to take the lead once again. However, Brisbane take the lead with 5 minutes remaining by 1 point. It's a tight game here at the G. However, Sydney take back the lead here, and inaccuracy really starts to cost the Lions here. 3 minutes to go. Sydney get a handy point. Brisbane need to score at least twice to win here. And Sydney get a goal, so that should just about do it for them unless a miracle happens. And Sydney get 1 more goal to top it off, and they are your 2024 premiers. In a high-scoring affair, Sydney get the chocolates by 19 points. And your Norm Smith medalist for 2024 is Chad Warner. I think he's probably the best player in the team. The best player in the midfield. Well, this medal is not as midfield biased as the Brownlow, but midfielders win it more than anyone, generally. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you then. Cheers for watching.